Hey friends, it's Min. Welcome back to our channel. Today I have my friend Rhianne Bergado here.
Hello.
And we're gonna talk a little bit.
So what's up? What are we chatting about?
We're gonna talk about you.
Deep, dark secrets.
All right, so Ray, what do you do for the people who don't know you?
I do a lot of things by trade. I am a video producer and director. And as you know, I work in like the beauty and fashion space right now, but I have a very, very sordid past.
Sort of past.
In production.
Which we will delve into. So we're both creatives and we're both Asian. And I feel like,
Whoa, an alleged Asian.
you're like, what do I mark in that box?
What do I put? I always have to put Pacific Islander. What do you put? Because I literally am a Pacific
I
Islander.
put Asian.
But it's weird because we are Pacific Islander. We are technically Spanish.
No, it's weird because Vietnam used to be a French occupied colony.
Yeah.
So if you go back far enough, it's like we're both like, what are we like? Because like we have all these colonizers coming in and like mixing their blood with ours.
Yeah.
I'm an immigrant and like my parents are immigrant, your parents are immigrant. Like coming here, there's been this idea of what the American dream is for Asian people, particularly because like they call us the model minority. Like, but I feel like you and I do something that's so far from what like our parents and like that community thinks is supposed to be the Asian American dream. How has that been for you when you talk to them and you're like, I'm an artist? They're like, what?
Yeah. Just for anyone who doesn't know, the Asian American dream is for you to come to America and all of your children automatically become hedge fund bankers, doctors, and lawyers, which is not always the case. And I think my sister is 5 years older than me, and she really was good about like adhering to that dream. And my sister became a lawyer, and she's a badass, like in the social justice system.
Totally is.
And then I'm over here, I'm like, I'd like to sell you some mascara today. Please buy it. So yeah, our paths are really different, but I feel like there is a thing, and whether your parents are Asian or not, your parents have all of these expectations for like the first child or the older child. And then by the time you have another kid 5 years later, your shit is just tired.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what? You want to go to clown school? Fine. I think parents are tired by the time they get to their younger kids. I think it takes a lot of resilience to keep up your Asian American cram school like status. I think a lot of things were difficult for my parents. They were immigrants. They came over here, and my parents immigrated here in the 70s. Even though by all means, my dad should have gone straight into being an accountant, my mom could have gone straight into being a teacher. It's like culturally, there's so much for you to relearn when you get to America that my parents ended up working in fish canneries and ironically makeup factories, you know, like here in Long Beach. Full circle. Ha! Who's on top now, lipstick? Basically, you come here and you think it's going to be cool, and you have to start all over again. And that's something I didn't really appreciate until I'm now an adult. And I imagine being, you know, the age of my parents, 25 or 30, and starting over again. I can't imagine it.
My father's an artist too. So I feel like that gave some flex room because he's like, well, hypocritical of me to be able to be like, you know, you can't do this when I've already done that.
Yeah.
But I do remember him sitting me down and being like, okay, if you want to do this, it's not an easy life. Like he's like, they don't say starving artists for no reason. Like he was like, you probably will have a very difficult time making ends meet for many, many like days and like many months, many years even. But I think the hardest came down to actually not my parents in regards of me, but my parents in regards of other parents when they're trying to explain me to other people.
And that's a big thing in the Asian American community, is feeling the need to explain your child to your peers.
Right.
Because even if you've got a grasp on it, it doesn't mean that they do. Imagine my parents explaining that, the oldest one's a lawyer, the youngest one, it makes videos and is a DJ. And then they're like, oh, like, does she have kids? What does her husband do? Oh, super gay. So like how,
has a wife.
Like has a wife, but you know, my parents have expressed nothing but like pride for me, which has been very nice. And that was like a long trajectory of like change and like cultural acceptance and stuff in my family. I'm very proud of them. But yeah, I think in our community, the feeling of explaining your children to your peers and using them as a proving ground, which a lot of parents unfortunately do. Yeah. I'm not from one of those families. My family's like, cool, you're not in jail. So, you know, expectations are low. But that I've definitely seen it though. I've seen its presence, and I've seen it in ugly ways too. So it's nice to not be from one of those families.
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
It's funny because my mom's actually like she came to fight. She was like, no, I'm gonna tell you, like, you know, your son's a doctor. Guess what? You go to Sephora, you're gonna see my daughter.
Guess who's on the gondola?
Guess what?
Your daughter's face.
Tell your son that.
Get your son on a gondola. I'll bet you she takes her friends to Sephora and is like, hey, look down here. Oh my goodness, who is that?
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, what a range of skin tones they have.
Oh, but look at this one. So, like, you're a filmmaker and you do all this, you DJ, all this creative stuff.
Yeah.
Was it always that way? Like, did you always know, like, you're like, I'm not just gonna take this conventional route?
I think I knew that I was going to be creative because I could always draw really well, and people always said that I was going to be an artist. I have a degree in like sequential art and stuff like that, which really comes in handy for film.
Yeah.
But my ability to think of composition and the flow of story really helps in my everyday life of what I do. You go through the drudge of like the 9-to-5 work life. And then I always think like, you know, if I talk to 9-year-old or 13-year-old Rhianne, told her, yo, you're gonna like make videos and you're gonna meet celebrities and you're gonna get paid to DJ like anime conventions and Comic Cons all around the country. 9-year-old Rhianne would have flipped out. 9-year-old would have been like, take me to 40 right now. I want to be a 40-year-old, 9-year-old, which is pretty much what is going on, right?
That's what it's like 13 going on 30.
Yeah, and it's very easy to access my 13-year-old self.
Yeah.
I've never left it behind. I've never felt the need to grow up or felt that pressure, which is maybe a plus or a minus.
I just remember being 15 and was like, okay, maybe I don't know what I want to be, but I always knew who I wanted to be. I was like, I want to be like extremely well-dressed human. And then I was like, I knew I wanted to travel the world. Like, it was just something I intrinsically knew. Like, even from as early as like 4, I was like, my parents had my palm read, like a baby hand being read. And then they were like, this child will see great wonders. And my mom's like, oh, you're gonna travel the world. And I just kind of like intrinsically knew that. I knew I wanted that life.
Moms usually know.
Yeah. So I'm always like, oh, like if baby men saw like curtain men, like going into my closet alone would already, I have 2 closets. I have like a closet that's in my bedroom and a closet that's my entire spare bedroom. So like that's the extent of my closet.
Yeah. So perspective from your younger self is nice. I feel that all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
This really like reminds me of this quote I bring up all the time, and it's like, be who you needed when you were younger.
Yeah.
Like,
be that bitch.
Yeah. Who do you think young Ray needs?
I think young Ree really needed to see more queer people because it was never explained to me. And I think, and I don't think it's just like an American culture thing, but like the way queer people like were depicted in the 80s and 90s was such an extreme of like stereotypes that I think the person I would have needed to be to that younger person was just to exist and just to be visible. And I feel like there are a lot of young people in my life right now. And even though we don't directly talk about it, I feel like Marie and I, especially in our family, we're very keen on just being an example of like, this is normal. Like, we're not dramatic. We're not anything. We're not any of the stereotypes that you think we are. We're actually quite boring. Yeah. And you know what? Someday you can be boring too. And it's just, it's weird, like that level of reassurance. If I would have just known another, we did like have like at least one like gay couple friend that were like neighbors, but for me to be old enough to understand that and see the stability of that would have made such a huge difference like in my life.
We've talked about this before, but I'd really like to like expound on it. Like that every time like we're on a set, it's mostly dudes, and particularly like just like white dudes. And like being like, you know, a person of color and queer, and like being in a position where like you're a director, so most of the time that I see you, you're running the set on top of these like white dudes. And I feel like sometimes that causes some kind of collision. Like, what has your experience been like?
I've worked in production since I was 19 years old. I'm 39 now, so I've literally been doing this for 20 years. I always had a certain amount of comfort on set, and I think it's because I am comfortable with my feminine and my masculine side. But the old saying that, you know, basically marginalized people have to work twice as hard to get just as far is absolutely true. But I think I knew that out of the gate. I knew that I would have to know every single thing about a camera and a light and a set if anyone was ever going to take me seriously, but I was naturally nerdy.
Yeah.
And there were some situations I walked into where I could talk the talk and walk the walk when it came to being on set. And there were some situations where no matter how good I was never going to be good enough for that guy. And I had to just kind of accept that, you know? I started as a field producer for TV like 10 years ago. People would walk right by me on set and ask where the director was. Or they would walk to the tallest person on set and ask if he was the director. And they'd always be like, because I'm 5 feet tall, like she's down there. I think I was a rarity at the time. And I've literally had the oldest, whitest, most conservative like producers and men who own production companies approach me after a shoot or maybe a year or two after working with them and say, I wasn't sure about you, but you're really good. Which is like a backhanded compliment if you think about it. Like they were basically saying like, I judged you and underestimated you immediately, but you proved me wrong, as if like I earned something good. It's like, well, I'm just doing my job. My job on this is to be a producer, and I just did it. So it's expected of me to not only bark and be assertive like a male producer, but to nurture my set and my people as a female producer. And it's strange that both of these expectations are on me at the same time, and I feel it.
I was on the set, and it was like this freelance job I worked, and everyone was male.
Yeah.
Like
very common, very common.
No, but in addition, the model was also male, right? Yeah. So like everyone, I was the only female. Yeah. And I just remember thinking, other than like the video guy, I was like, I've done all your roles. Like, I've been the art director, right? I've been the photographer. Yeah. Like, I was like, I actually can comp in as like the hair person. Like, my mom does hair, so like I have a little bit of background. Actually, I'm like, there wasn't a nail person, but like I could also do nails. My aunt owns an entire nail store. Yeah. No, I'm not giving them that. And then I was like, obviously, like I can do the stylist job, and I'm like, I could do the marketing person's job, and like I'm like, on top of it, I've been on camera. So I'm like, every single one of you, like, I could be, but none of them have ever been able to do each other's roles, which like, I was like, oh, so it's enough for them to just do their one role. Whereas like for me, like it has to be that I was able to do everyone's role for me to be standing here. Yeah. If you were to speak to someone who is maybe struggling in the industry, or like a woman who's like struggling to find her place on set, or like a young queer person struggling with their own identity, like what would you say?
I think when it comes to women or women of color who are getting into content creation or film and television, I would remind them that they have access to so many more tools now than we had when I was kind of coming up in the industry. I used to shoot news and ENG packages, and the camera, a Betacam by itself, by the time you put the tape and the light and the battery on it, was 50 pounds, and I'm 5 feet tall, like shooting up people's noses with this 50-pound camera.
Look at that booger.
And now today, like the fact that we have phones, cameras in our hands, and we can edit and publish content like within the minute that you shoot it is amazing. And to flex that, because we never had that before. It's why we have so many more voices than we did before. Right. And I wouldn't obsess over the tools. Don't wait until you can afford a Sony A7S or a Red camera or an Alexa camera or something like that to make something. I really truly believe there is no reason that a person can't produce or do the things they want to do on a smaller or more restrained scale without all of the fancy tools.
Right.
I truly believe that. I think if you want to make a film, you can make a film with a camera in your phone. You know, if you want to take a photo, you can edit that photo in your camera. And I feel like you can do a lot of things now. The matter of fact is, you gotta crawl before you ball. Like if you buy a Red camera, you're not automatically going to Sundance. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're not, just because you bought an expensive basketball, you're not gonna dunk that ball. You know what I'm saying? I say learn as much as you can on like the smaller forms of media, because you have access to it and there's no reason for you not to. And you're not going to be there right away. You're not going to skyrocket to anything right away. For me, it was like 10 years, and I turned around and I was like, holy crap, look at this body of work I've amassed. And I look at my old films, and I love the heart and soul of my old documentaries. And then I look at the new stuff, and I'm like, how crazy that I came from that, just shooting on a mini DV video camera. And now, you know, I have DPs and I have gaffers and you know, I have whole teams of like art directors and production designers, and it's crazy to me. But I always know that I can go back and pick up a camera and do it myself if I have to. And if you don't have that ability, again, do you understand the roles on set? Have you done those roles? You will be that much better if you just crawl before you bawl. So, as for anyone who is also queer and like kind of coming to terms with that, and whether they want to be an artist or if they're just going through a transition in their life, I would say that the answer isn't any one thing. I went subculture to subculture to subculture, thinking that that was going to be the thing where I fit in. And the matter of fact was, until I explored those things and then really agreed that those things are a part of me and I am not a part of those things, that's when I really like had some clarity about my identity. And you know, back in the 90s, there were like hard rules to being gay. You had to be one or two different things. You were femme or you were butch, and there was nothing in between. No one was talking about being non-binary. No one was talking about being trans, and no one was talking about all of the finite things in between, and everybody like living on this spectrum, which is a wonderful place where we live right now. And so I would say, don't worry about fitting into the any one thing. Just gather the pieces, put them in your little heart bucket, and then that's your thing.
Heart bucket, I like that.
That's your thing, man. That's you. You're not gonna find it. You know, people are always like, oh, I'm gonna travel to Europe and so I can find myself. It's like, well, people don't really find themselves. People build themselves, like Lego brick by Lego brick. Like people build themselves. So if you can shift your perspective to, I'm going to find a magic potion, I'm going to find a magic bullet, and it's going to make everything okay. And if you can stop thinking that way and start thinking like, oh, I'm going to take every lesson and every bit of every person that I meet, and then that is going to affect me and inform me, and then that's who I am, like, boom, you've got it. You have got it. It's the oldest Dorothy, the magic was in you the whole time. You had the shoes on the whole time, honey. So, you know, like that would be like my very real advisement, is to stop looking for things on the outside and start thinking of things to build yourself up, because that's really what it's all about. And now you have all the keys to life. Good luck with your life, everyone.
Are there any current projects you're working on?
I just finished a documentary about my family immigrating to America, and we owned a video store, and I grew up in the back of that video store, which I very recently realized made me a full-fledged weirdo. So it's kind of the cross-intersectionality of like being Asian American and then having access to all this media and artwork as a really young child. I kind of wrote a sequel to that documentary. I'm gonna be featured in a book called Creepy Bitches. And the book is all about women who have worked in the horror industry. And I worked in the horror industry for 5 years. I worked for Lionsgate's FearNet movie channel. And it's kind of about my adventures working in horror films, why I love horror films, and the roots of growing up in that video store. And even just like all of the superstition and cultural things you grow up with being Filipino, and how it all kind of contributed to that path of becoming like that kind of filmmaker for a while. So yeah, those are my two big projects. And other than that, I'm still just bopping around, DJing, anime conventions, hanging with the nerds, being a weeboo.
Who are the 5 people you would invite to your dinner party? You know the question.
My dinner party?
It's a college essay question.
I feel like I would love to have my grandmother at a dinner party. I would love my favorite playwright / screenplay writer, Billy Wilder, to be there. I would love for Barry Manilow to be there for my grandmother to interact with. I'm like just thinking about like how everyone's gonna click.
I was like, romantic connection.
I would love Lena Waithe to be at this dinner party. I think that would be awesome. And then who's the last person I would invite? I would have to be someone really wacky. I think it'd be like Awkwafina. Like I just want one wild card, like one absolute wild card to keep the conversation going. So that would be my 5. It would be like, yo, Awkwafina, Barry Manilow, Lena Waithe, Grandma, Billy Wilder. Like, how weird is that part? But that's my life. That's my life, right? Like so those are the 5 people.
It's telling for people. Like when you ask them and they give you their answer. I'm like, all right.
I'm not gonna. I would love Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, Malala. Like, none of those people will be at my they wouldn't even come over if I asked. So, but I think Barry Manilow would though. He'd be like, yeah.
Or it might be one of those situations where you can hire him for like $20,000. Like he's one of those celebrities.
I get on one of those apps and like, can Barry Manilow say happy birthday to me for $10,000? $10,000
just have celebrities doing weird things.
Yeah, like I get JC Chazet instead. Yeah. Like, who, what? Yeah, that's my 5.
I think mine is like YSL. Obviously, the man's a legend. Literally, I dress the way I dress because of him. Yeah. And I went to like the YSL Museum in Marrakesh last year, and they had his like the most iconic works like on display. That's awesome. And I like started crying like a buffoon, like just between all these tours. I'm just like,
So you have seen something with your human eyes and been moved by it. I felt that when I went to my first Basquiat exhibit. I felt very overwhelmed. Like the pieces were so big, and I felt all of this, like, I felt this weird, I had this weird theme of like regret and artists, and do artists regret things? And I felt like I had a lot of questions answered. I felt very like moved.
Were you a Basquiat fan prior to that visit? Or it was just...
Yeah, I was. I had seen his artwork. I was really into the legend of Samo because I was really into graffiti art and stuff like that. And then I discovered like, and I didn't put it together. I knew who Samo was before I knew who Basquiat was, put it that way. And then I realized it unlocked this whole other door, and that's kind of like
unlocked the next level.
It was the next level. So art is made of like leftover mistakes constantly. Art style is what you lack. Let's be honest.
Rhianne and I are done. We're gonna go to eat lunch.
So much food, guys.
But thanks for tuning in.